The longest time a human can live without a heart is 555 days, or about 1.5 years. This man proved it, and he was able to do all this while carrying his new heart in a backpack. You're probably thinking, how could someone live that long without a heart? How did he eat, sleep, walk, and do everyday activities without a heart? These are great questions, and today we'll answer them all. But before we do, be sure to hit that like button for more amazing medical videos. Also, stick around until the end of the video to hear about a miraculous modern medical procedure that saved this man's life. You won't believe what doctors did to keep him alive. Stan Larkin was born on May 31, 1980, in Detroit, Michigan. His life was just like any other teenager. He graduated from high school in 1998 and then went to college where he studied criminal justice. After college, he got a job at Ford Motor Company working in security. While at Ford, Stan met and married his wife and they had 2 beautiful children. Life was good, but unfortunately, his health soon took a turn for the worst. When Stan was just 19 years old, he was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a disease in which the heart muscle becomes abnormally thick, making it harder for the heart to pump blood. This means that Stan's heart wasn't actually pumping enough blood through his body, causing a slew of other health problems. In 2002, Stan received his first implantable cardioverter defibrillator, a device that checks your heart rhythm and sends an electrical shock to your heart if it beats too fast or it stops beating. Unfortunately, Stan's condition continued to deteriorate. In 2012, Stan's doctors told him that the only thing that could save him was a heart transplant. The problem was there was no suitable donor available and he had to wait. Luckily, they were able to stabilize him long enough so that he could continue living his life while waiting for a donor. But when a donor finally became available, tragedy struck. Just 3 days before his transplant surgery, his wife left him. Stan couldn't believe his luck. First, he nearly died of a broken heart, then he was denied a new one. Jokes aside, his situation was dire. His doctor gave him a grim prognosis. If he didn't get a new heart soon, he would likely die within the year. Stan asked his doctors if there was anything else they could do to help him. They told him that he was a candidate for a temporary artificial heart. The catch: the soonest they could get him on the list was 6 months. This meant that Stan only had 6 months to live, unless he could find another way to buy himself more time. But Stan didn't want to just sit around and wait to die. He wanted to keep living his life, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. He contacted a biotechnology company called Syncardia Systems and asked them if they could make him a portable artificial heart. Normally, these devices are only used in emergency situations so that a patient can be transported from one hospital to another. But Stan's case was different. He wanted to use it while he waited for a real heart transplant. The CEO of the company was moved by Stan's story and agreed to help him. It took some time, but eventually they were able to come up with a plan. They would modify one of their devices so that it could be worn outside of the body. This way, Stan wouldn't have to stay in the hospital while he waited for a new heart. Instead, he could go home and live almost normally. On June 2, 2016, Stan was implanted with a temporary artificial heart. The next day, he was released from the hospital and sent home. Stan was one of the first people in history to ever be discharged from the hospital with a portable artificial heart. You might be wondering how this device worked. Well, it was essentially a mechanical heart that was powered by an air compressor that Stan wore in a backpack. The device was attached to Stan's body with a series of tubes and wires. One tube was inserted into Stan's aorta, the main artery that carries blood away from the heart. Another tube was inserted into his vena cava, the large vein that returns blood to the heart. A wire was also attached to his chest, which was connected to the air compressor in his backpack. Here's how it all worked together. The air compressor pumped air into the artificial heart, which caused it to spin. As it spun, it moved blood through Stan's body, replacing the function of his real heart. The whole system was controlled with a remote, which Stan used to start and stop the pump. When it was time for bed, he simply turned off the pump, and his body would naturally move the blood around until he turned it back on again. The device also had a built-in alarm system that would alert Stan if there was a problem. For example, if the battery started to run low, he would hear an alarm and know that he needed to change the batteries. Or if there was a leak in the tubing, he would also be alerted. At first, Stan had some trouble getting used to the device, but after a few weeks, he was able to live almost normally. He was even able to play basketball with his son, although he had to take frequent breaks. He also had to be careful not to get the device wet, so he couldn't shower or swim. But other than that, he was free to do whatever he wanted. After several months, Stan started to feel like he was living with a new lease on life. He was grateful to the doctors and nurses who had helped him, as well as the company that had made the artificial heart possible. But he never forgot that he was still waiting for a real heart transplant. One day in December 2016, over 6 months since receiving his artificial heart, Stan got the call he had been waiting for. A donor heart had become available. He rushed to the hospital, where doctors performed the transplant surgery. The operation was successful, and Stan was able to return home in January 2017. Since his transplant, Stan has been living a normal life. He can do anything that he wants to do, and he doesn't have to worry about his heart. He is grateful for the second chance that he has been given, and he hopes that his story will inspire others who are facing difficult medical challenges. So how did this man live without a heart for 555 days? Well, it was thanks to modern medical technology that allowed him to carry his new heart in a backpack. With this device, he was able to live almost normally and do all the things he loved, like playing basketball with his son. Although his case is rare, it shows us what is possible when doctors, scientists, and patients work together. This leads us to our next question. Was this man's artificial heart the first of its kind? The answer is no. In fact, there have been several different types of artificial hearts developed over the years. Some are implanted inside the body, while others are worn externally. And some are powered by electricity, while others are powered by air pressure. However, this particular type of artificial heart is still relatively new technology. It was first approved by the FDA in 2004. So how does this man's story compare to others who have received artificial hearts? Well, in most cases, artificial hearts are only used as a bridge to transplant. This means that the patient will receive an artificial heart, while they wait for a donor heart to become available. In some cases, the artificial heart may be used for several months or even years. However, in most cases, the patient will receive a transplant long before that. There have been a few cases of patients who have lived with an artificial heart for many years, but this is rare. In most cases, the patient's body will eventually reject the artificial heart, or they will develop other complications. So what happens now? What will happen to this man's artificial heart? Well, the device that he used while he waited for his transplant is no longer needed. It was removed during the transplant surgery. However, he will need to take medication for the rest of his life to prevent his body from rejecting the new heart. He will also need to see his doctor regularly for checkups and blood tests. What advice would you give to someone who is waiting for a heart transplant? I would tell them to stay positive and focus on the things they can control, such as their diet and exercise. I would also tell them to surround themselves with a support system of family and friends who can help them through the tough times. Most importantly, I would tell them to never give up hope. A heart transplant is a life-saving surgery, and there are many people who have received second chances at life thanks to this procedure. If you were in this man's shoes, what would you do? Would you get a portable artificial heart? Let me know in the comments below. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button for more amazing medical videos. And don't forget to subscribe.